You didn't become easy to ignore overnight. You became easy to overlook the moment you started being there every single time, without pause, without space, without ever choosing yourself first. And the truth is, you didn't do it for attention. You did it because you care deeply, because you didn't want to lose anyone, because somewhere inside you believed that if you stayed consistent enough, present enough, available enough, people would finally see your value. But instead, something started to feel different. Their replies became slower. Their energy became quieter. The connection that once felt alive now feels distant, even though you are still giving the same, or even more. And that's the part that hurts in a way you can't fully explain. You are showing up more than ever, yet somehow you feel less seen than before. So, pause here, just for a moment, because what you're feeling is not random and it's not your fault. There is a deeper reason why the more available you become, the less you seem to be valued. And once you truly understand this, you won't just change how others see you, you will finally change how you show up for yourself. The more you give without boundaries, the more your presence stops feeling like a choice. When you are always available, something very quiet but very powerful begins to shift in how people feel you. In the beginning, your presence feels warm, intentional, and deeply meaningful, like you are choosing to be there because it comes from a real place inside you. It feels alive. It feels personal. It feels like something that matters. But when you keep showing up without pause, without space, without any limit, that same presence slowly loses its meaning. Not because you changed, but because there is no longer any sense of choice in it. It starts to feel automatic, like it was always going to happen no matter what. And the moment your presence stops feeling like a choice, it also starts losing the emotional weight it once carried. The human mind is very simple in this way. It does not hold on to what is constant. It adjusts to it. It normalizes it. It stops noticing it. So when someone knows that you will always reply, always pick up, always be there, always make time no matter what, they slowly stop seeing the effort behind it. They stop feeling the depth of your care. Not because they are trying to ignore you, and not because they suddenly became a different person, but because the mind naturally stops paying attention to what never disappears. And this is where it becomes painful, in a way that is hard to explain. You are giving more, but feeling less seen. You are showing up more, but feeling less valued. You are trying harder, but feeling more distant. And instead of understanding what is really happening, you begin to think maybe you need to give even more. Maybe you need to be even more available, even more present, even more consistent. But the truth is, the more you remove space, the more you remove the chance for your presence to be felt. Because what makes something meaningful is not just its presence, it is also its absence. When there is no gap, no pause, no moment where you are not there, there is no moment where someone can sit with your absence and realize what you bring into their life. There is no moment where they feel your value. There is no moment where your presence becomes something they appreciate again. So your presence becomes predictable, and predictability slowly removes emotional impact. It turns something once meaningful into something expected. And what is expected rarely feels special, no matter how pure or sincere it is. This is why boundaries are not distance. Boundaries are not rejection. Boundaries are not you becoming cold or uncaring. Boundaries are quiet self-respect. They are a gentle way of saying that your time has value, your energy has limits, and your presence is something you choose to give, not something that exists without awareness. When you live without boundaries, your presence becomes something people assume will always be there. It stops feeling like a gift and starts feeling like something guaranteed. But when you begin to honor your own space, something shifts. Your presence becomes intentional again. It becomes something that carries weight again. It becomes something people feel, not just something they have. And the deeper truth is this: you were never meant to give yourself endlessly just to be remembered. You were meant to exist with balance, with awareness, and with a quiet sense of self-worth that does not depend on always being there. Because the moment your presence becomes something you are afraid to pull back from, it is no longer love guiding you. It is fear. And the moment you begin to choose your presence, instead of unconsciously giving it away, everything begins to change. Not just how others see you, but how you finally begin to see yourself. When you are always there, you remove the space where you could ever be missed. There is a quiet truth most people never stop to see. People do not fully feel your presence when you are always there. They feel it when you are not. At first, this may sound strange, even a little uncomfortable, because your heart tells you that being there more should create more connection, more closeness, more meaning. So, you stay available. You reply quickly. You make time again and again. You remove distance because you believe distance will weaken the bond. But something very different begins to happen. When you are always present, you unknowingly remove the one thing that allows people to truly feel you, and that is space. Without space, there is no pause. Without pause, there is no reflection. And without reflection, there is no deep awareness of what you actually mean to someone. Think about this slowly. If you are always there, when will they sit with your absence? When will they notice the silence where your voice used to be? When will they feel that small emptiness that quietly says, something is missing? That feeling, that moment of missing, is where your value becomes real in their heart. But when you remove every gap, every delay, every moment of distance, you remove that experience completely. Your presence becomes constant, and what is constant becomes invisible to the mind. Not because it has no value, but because it was never interrupted long enough to be felt. This is why you can be deeply present in someone's life and still feel unseen. Because being there all the time does not guarantee being felt deeply. Sometimes it does the opposite. It makes your presence blend into the background of their life, like something that is always there, so it no longer needs attention. And the painful part is, you might notice this change before they do. You start feeling the distance even while you are still close. You start sensing that your presence is not landing the same way. You start wondering why something that once felt strong now feels quiet, faded, less alive. And instead of stepping back, you lean in more. You try to be there even more, thinking that maybe the connection just needs more effort, more consistency, more presence. But the truth is, what it actually needs is space. Not distance created from hurt, but space created from awareness. Because space is not what breaks connection, it is what allows connection to breathe. Just like silence gives meaning to sound, and pauses give meaning to words, absence gives meaning to presence. It creates contrast, it creates awareness, it allows the heart to notice what it already has. Without that contrast, everything becomes flat. Your presence is there, but it is not felt. Your effort is there, but it is not seen. Your care is there, but it is not recognized. This is why being missed is not about playing games or pulling away to create reactions. It is not about becoming distant to control how someone feels. It is about understanding that human connection needs rhythm. It needs moments of closeness and moments of space. When you allow that rhythm to exist, something beautiful begins to happen. People start to notice you again. They start to feel your presence again. They start to appreciate what you bring, not because you demanded it, but because they had a moment to experience life without it. And that moment quietly reminds them of your value. So if you have been feeling unseen, unappreciated, or taken for granted, do not rush to give more. Pause. Not to punish, not to withdraw in pain, but to allow space to do what constant presence never could. Because sometimes the only reason your presence is not being felt is because it has never been allowed to be missed. In trying to be available for everyone, you slowly disappear from your own life. There is a quiet moment that most people never notice, the moment where caring for others slowly turns into forgetting yourself. It does not happen in one big decision. It happens in small, repeated choices. You say yes when you are tired. You reply when you need silence. You show up when your mind is asking for rest. You listen to everyone, but stop listening to yourself. And at first, it feels right. It feels like kindness. It feels like you are being a good person, someone who is present, reliable, supportive. You tell yourself that this is what connection looks like, that being there for others is something to be proud of. But slowly, something inside you begins to fade. Not suddenly, not loudly, quietly. You start postponing your own needs again and again, telling yourself you will take care of them later. You stop protecting your time because someone else might need it. You ignore your own emotions because someone else's feelings seem more urgent. And without realizing it, you begin to build a life where you are available for everyone except yourself. This is how disappearance begins. You are still physically present in your life. You still wake up, still go through your day, still interact with people. But inside, something feels distant, something feels missing. You feel tired in a way that rest does not fix. You feel empty in a way that connection does not fill. Because you are no longer living from yourself, you are living around others. And the more you do this, the more your identity begins to shift. You stop asking, "What do I need?" and start asking only, "What do they need from me?" You stop checking in with your own feelings, your own energy, your own boundaries. You become someone who is always ready to give, but slowly forgets how to receive, even from yourself. And here is the deeper truth that is hard to accept. When you disappear from your own life, others begin to feel that absence too, even if they cannot explain it. Your presence becomes less grounded, less centered, less whole. You are there, but not fully. You are giving, but not from a place of fullness. And people can feel that, not because they are judging you, but because energy always speaks. A person who is connected to themselves carries a quiet strength. Their presence feels calm, stable, complete. But a person who has been neglecting themselves carries a different feeling. There is a subtle restlessness, a quiet exhaustion, a sense that something is missing beneath the surface. So even though you are giving more, you are being felt less. And this creates a painful cycle. The more unseen you feel, the more you try to give. The more you try to give, the more you disconnect from yourself. And the more you disconnect from yourself, the less your presence feels alive to others. This is why trying to be available for everyone can slowly take you away from your own life. You become busy being everything for others, while slowly becoming nothing for yourself. And the truth is, no connection can truly feel fulfilling if you are not present within your own existence. No relationship can feel balanced if one part of you is constantly being ignored. You were not meant to disappear just to be accepted. You were not meant to silence yourself just to be included. You were not meant to give endlessly without ever returning to yourself. Real presence begins within. When you start listening to your own needs again, when you allow yourself to rest without guilt, when you begin to protect your time and your energy, you slowly come back to your own life. And when you come back to yourself, your presence changes. It becomes fuller, it becomes calmer, it becomes real again. Because now, when you show up for others, you are not coming from emptiness, you are coming from awareness. You are coming from a place where you exist within your own life first, and everything else comes after that. And that kind of presence cannot disappear. it can only grow stronger. The need to be needed quietly turns your presence into a hidden dependency. At the beginning, it feels pure. You want to be there for them. You want to help, to support, to listen, to make things easier. You show up because it feels natural, because caring comes easily to you, because your heart moves toward people without resistance. There is nothing wrong with that. But slowly, almost invisibly, something begins to change. It is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not feel dangerous. It feels comforting. You start to notice that it feels good when they need you, when your phone lights up with their message, when they come to you with their problems, when they depend on you to feel better, to think clearly, to feel supported. And in those moments, you feel important. You feel seen. You feel valued. You feel like you matter. And without realizing it, your presence begins to attach itself to that feeling. Now, you are not just showing up because you care. You are also showing up because you need to feel needed. And this is where something very subtle but very powerful begins to happen. Your presence slowly shifts from being free to being dependent. Before, you were giving from fullness. You were present because you chose to be. But now, your mind starts waiting for those moments of validation. You begin to look for their messages. You start noticing when they don't reach out. You feel a small drop inside when they seem distant. And that quiet drop, that slight discomfort, is the signal. It means your peace has started to depend on something outside you. Now your availability is no longer just kindness. It becomes a way to maintain a feeling, a way to hold on to being important in someone's life, a way to avoid the silence where you might feel uncertain about your place. So you respond faster. You give more attention. You make yourself even more available. Not because you are weak, but because something inside you is trying to protect a feeling you do not want to lose. But the more you move from this place, the more your energy begins to change. Your presence starts to feel like it is reaching, like it is waiting, like it is quietly asking to be confirmed again and again. And even if the other person cannot explain it, they feel that shift. Because human beings naturally move away from what feels dependent and move toward what feels whole, not out of cruelty, not out of rejection, but because dependency creates pressure, and pressure slowly pushes connection away. This is why, the more you need to be needed, the less stable your position becomes. It creates a hidden imbalance. You begin to care more about maintaining your place than about simply being yourself. You begin to give in ways that are not always honest to your own energy. You begin to show up even when you are tired, even when you need space, even when something inside you is asking for rest. And in doing so, you slowly lose your center. From a Buddhist perspective, this is attachment. Not attachment to the person, but attachment to the feeling they give you. And attachment always brings suffering, because it places your inner state in the hands of something you cannot control. The moment their behavior changes, your peace changes. The moment they become distant, you feel it deeply. The moment they do not need you, you start questioning your value. And this creates a cycle that quietly drains you. But awareness breaks this cycle. The moment you see that your need to be needed is shaping your behavior, something begins to shift. You start to separate your presence from your need for validation. You start to show up when it is true, not when it is driven by fear. You allow yourself to step back without feeling like you are losing your place. And slowly, your presence becomes free again. You are no longer giving to feel important. You are giving because it comes from a calm, steady place within you. And that kind of presence feels completely different. It does not reach. It does not wait. It does not depend. It simply exists. And that is where real strength begins. Because the moment you stop needing to be needed is the moment your presence becomes something real, something grounded, something that cannot be shaken by someone else's attention. Respect grows around inner stability, not around constant availability. There is something very quiet but very powerful that people feel long before they understand it. It is not your words. It is not how often you reply. It is not how much you give. It is your inner stability. The way you carry yourself without needing constant reassurance. The way you remain calm even when things are uncertain. The way your presence feels complete, not reaching, not waiting, not asking to be confirmed. This is what creates respect. Not how available you are, but how stable you are within yourself. Because when you are constantly available, your energy slowly begins to feel unsettled. Not on the surface, but underneath. There is a quiet sense that you are always ready, always waiting, always adjusting yourself around others. And even if you try to hide it, people can feel that your presence is moving toward them more than it is grounded within you. And the mind responds to that. Not in words, but in feeling. When someone feels that you are always there no matter what, they begin to rely on that certainty without questioning it. They stop noticing the value of your time because it feels unlimited. They stop feeling the weight of your presence because it does not require awareness to access it. And slowly, respect fades. Not because you lost your worth, but because your worth is no longer being felt. Now compare that to a different kind of presence. A presence that is calm, centered, and self-contained. Someone who is not always available, but when they are fully there. Someone who does not rush to respond to everything, but responds with awareness. Someone who does not adjust themselves constantly, but stays rooted in their own pace, their own energy, their own life. This kind of presence feels different. It feels steady. It feels grounded. It feels real. And people naturally respect what feels stable, not because they are told to respect it, but because stability creates trust. It creates a quiet understanding that this person is not controlled by attention, not moved by every moment, not shaped by the need to be accepted. There is something within them that does not shift easily, and that creates a sense of strength. From a deeper perspective, this is why constant availability weakens how you are perceived, because it slowly removes the sense of self behind your actions. You are always there, but not always grounded. You are always giving, but not always centered. You are always present, but not always connected to yourself. And when your presence loses that connection to yourself, it also loses the stability that makes people respect it. Respect is not built on effort alone. You can give more than anyone else, care more than anyone else, show up more than anyone else, and still feel less respected. Because respect does not come from how much you give. It comes from how you stand. From a Buddhist understanding, this is the difference between attachment and awareness. Attachment makes you move toward people without balance. It makes your presence dependent on their reactions, their attention, their responses. It pulls you outward, away from your center. But awareness keeps you rooted. It allows you to give without losing yourself. It allows you to be present without needing to be constant. It allows you to connect without becoming dependent. And this rooted presence carries a quiet power. It does not try to impress. It does not try to hold on. It does not try to be everything all the time. It simply exists in balance. And that balance is what people respect. So the shift is not about becoming less kind. It is about becoming more grounded. It is about learning to pause before you respond, to check in with yourself before you give, to allow your presence to come from choice, not from habit. Because the moment your presence becomes stable within you, it begins to feel valuable outside of you, and the respect you were trying to earn through constant availability begins to appear naturally, without effort, quietly, but unmistakably. When you give too much, you break the natural rhythm that keeps connection alive. Every real connection has a rhythm, even if no one talks about it. It moves like a quiet tide, coming closer, then gently pulling back. There are moments of sharing and moments of silence. There is a natural flow between reaching out and stepping back, between giving and receiving, between being together and being alone. This rhythm is what keeps a connection alive. It gives it space to breathe. It gives it depth. It gives it balance. But when you start giving too much, too often, without pause, you slowly begin to interrupt this rhythm. Not in a loud or obvious way, but in a very quiet way that builds over time. You start being the one who always initiates, always responds first, always keeps the conversation going, always makes sure the connection does not fall silent. At first, it feels like effort. It feels like care. It feels like you are protecting something important. But slowly, that effort begins to replace the natural flow. Instead of the connection moving on its own, you begin to carry it. And the moment you start carrying a connection alone, something inside it begins to weaken, because now it is no longer balanced. There is no longer equal movement. There is no longer equal space. There is no longer equal presence. You move more, and they move less. Not always because they want to, but because the connection no longer asks anything from them. When one side gives too much, the other side naturally adjusts by giving less, not out of intention, but out of imbalance. It is how human interaction quietly corrects itself. And this is where the connection starts to feel different. You begin to feel like you are doing more work to keep it alive. You begin to notice that you are the one holding it together. You begin to feel a quiet exhaustion that you cannot fully explain. Because deep down, something knows this is no longer flowing, it is being forced. And forced connection always loses its depth. It may still exist. It may still continue, but it no longer feels the same. The ease disappears. The excitement fades. The natural pull between two people becomes weak. From a deeper perspective, what you are breaking is not just balance. You are breaking the space where connection renews itself. Because connection does not grow in constant presence. It grows in cycles. In moments where both people step forward, and moments where both people step back. In moments of closeness, and moments of quiet distance, where each person returns to themselves. Those moments of distance are not loss. They are where energy rebuilds. They are where curiosity returns. They are where the desire to reconnect becomes real again. But when you remove that space by always being present, always giving, always filling every silence, you remove the very condition that allows connection to stay alive. You leave no room for it to breathe. And something that cannot breathe, slowly, fades. This is why giving more is not always the answer. Sometimes, giving less with awareness brings more life than giving everything without pause. Because when you step back just enough to restore balance, something shifts. The connection begins to move again, not because you forced it, but because you stopped carrying it alone. You allow the other person to step in. You allow the rhythm to return. You allow the connection to exist between two people again, not just through your effort. And this changes how it feels. It becomes lighter. It becomes more natural. It becomes something that flows instead of something that drains. So if you feel like you are giving too much, doing too much, holding too much, pause. Not to withdraw in pain, but to restore balance. Because real connection does not need to be carried. It only needs to be allowed to move in its own natural rhythm. Attachment, disguised as love, is what slowly creates your suffering. There is a feeling that looks like love, sounds like love, even feels like love in the beginning, but slowly turns into something heavy, something restless, something that begins to hurt. That feeling is attachment. And the hardest part is, most people do not recognize it. Because when you care deeply about someone, when you think about them often, when you want to be close to them, it feels natural to stay connected, to stay available, to stay present as much as possible. It feels like you are loving them. It feels like you are doing the right thing. But there is a quiet difference between love and attachment. And that difference changes everything. Love is calm. Attachment is restless. Love gives freely. Attachment holds tightly. Love allows space. Attachment fears it. When you are attached, your actions are no longer coming only from care. They are quietly being shaped by fear. Fear of losing them, fear of being replaced, fear of not being enough, fear of becoming distant from something that feels important to you. So you try to stay close all the time. You respond quickly. You show up more. You make yourself constantly available, not just because you want to give, but because you are afraid of what might happen if you don't. And this is where suffering begins. Because the more you try to hold on, the more your peace becomes tied to something outside of you. Your emotions begin to rise and fall with their behavior. When they are close, you feel calm. When they are distant, you feel unsettled. When they give attention, you feel valued. When they pull back, you feel uncertain. Now your inner state is no longer stable. It is dependent. And anything that depends on something outside of you will always carry the risk of pain because you cannot control it. From a Buddhist understanding, this is the root of suffering. Not the person, not the connection, but the attachment itself, the clinging, the need to keep something exactly as it is, the quiet resistance to change, to distance, to uncertainty. And the more you resist, the more you suffer. Because life does not stay still. People change. Energy shifts. Connection moves. But attachment tries to hold everything in place. And that creates tension. You begin to feel anxious without a clear reason. You overthink small changes. You search for meaning in silence. You feel a weight in your chest when things are not the same. This is not love hurting you. This is attachment. Love does not create pressure inside you. Love does not make you feel like you have to hold everything together. Love does not make you lose your center. Attachment does. And the moment you begin to see this clearly, something begins to open. You realize that what you have been holding on to is not the person, it is the feeling they give you. The comfort, the attention, the sense of being important in someone's life. And once you see that, you begin to loosen your grip. Not because you care less, but because you understand more. You begin to allow space without panic. You begin to accept change without resistance. You begin to return your focus to yourself instead of constantly reaching outward. And slowly, your presence transforms. It becomes lighter. It becomes calmer. It becomes free. You are still capable of love. But now, your love is not tied to fear. It is not trying to hold, to control, to secure. It simply exists without needing to cling. And this is where suffering begins to fade. Because the moment you release attachment, you also release the constant tension that comes with it. You stop trying to keep everything exactly as it is. You allow connection to move naturally. You allow people to come closer or step away without losing yourself in the process. And in that space, something deeper appears. A quiet peace, a sense of inner stability, a feeling that your worth, your presence, your value does not depend on whether someone stays or leaves. This is the difference between attachment and awareness. Attachment makes you hold on. Awareness allows you to remain whole. And the moment you move from one to the other, you stop suffering over what you cannot control and start finding peace within what has always been yours. The moment you return to yourself, your value becomes impossible to ignore. There comes a quiet turning point. Not loud, not dramatic, but deeply real. It is the moment you stop looking outward for your worth and begin returning inward to yourself. Not in a way where you withdraw from the world, but in a way where you stop abandoning yourself just to stay connected to others. For a long time, your energy was moving outward. You were trying to be available enough, present enough, giving enough, hoping that somewhere in all that effort, you would feel seen, valued, chosen. But now, something inside you begins to understand. Your value was never meant to be proven through how much you give. It was meant to be felt through how deeply you are connected to yourself. And this is where the shift begins. You start listening to yourself again, not just your thoughts, but your energy. You notice when you are tired, and instead of pushing through, you allow yourself to rest. You notice when something feels off, and instead of ignoring it, you sit with it. You notice when you need space, and instead of feeling guilty, you honor it. Slowly, gently, you return. You return to your time. You return to your boundaries. You return to your sense of self. And something very powerful begins to happen. Your presence changes. It is no longer scattered. It is no longer reaching. It is no longer shaped by the need to be noticed. It becomes calm, grounded, intentional. Now, when you show up, you are not coming from emptiness trying to be filled. You are coming from fullness that does not need anything in return. And people feel that. Not because you are trying to make them feel it, but because grounded energy cannot be hidden. When you are no longer chasing attention, your presence naturally becomes more noticeable. When you are no longer trying to prove your value becomes clearer. When you are no longer always available, your presence begins to carry weight again. It is a quiet transformation, but it is undeniable. Before, you were always there, but not fully felt. Now, you may not always be there, but when you are deeply felt. This is what makes your value impossible to ignore. Not effort, not constant availability, not trying harder, but returning to yourself. Because when you are connected to yourself, your actions come from clarity, not fear. Your presence comes from choice, not habit. Your energy comes from stability, not dependence. And this changes how everything around you responds. People begin to respect your time because you respect it first. People begin to feel your presence because it is no longer constant and unconscious. People begin to value you, not because you asked for it, but because your energy reflects it. But the most important change is not outside. It is within you. You no longer feel the need to be everywhere. You no longer feel the pressure to always respond. You no longer feel anxious when there is space, because you are no longer trying to hold everything together. You are finally holding yourself. And in that place, something peaceful begins to grow. A quiet confidence, a steady calm, a sense that you are enough without needing to prove it. This is the moment everything real begins. Not when others choose you, but when you choose yourself. And from that place, your presence becomes something rare, not because it is limited, but because it is real. And what is real, what is grounded, what is whole, can never be ignored. And maybe the truth is, you were never being ignored. Maybe you were just giving yourself away so quietly that no one ever felt the weight of your presence. You were there every time. You showed up without pause. You gave without asking anything back. And somewhere along the way, you forgot what it feels like to be chosen by yourself. But listen carefully. Nothing about you is lacking. Nothing about you is too much. Nothing about you needs to be reduced just to be accepted. The only thing that needed to change was where you were standing, not outside, trying to be seen, but inside, finally seeing yourself. Because the moment you stop chasing connection and start returning to your own center, something very quiet begins to happen. Your energy settles, your mind softens, your presence becomes calm, steady, real, and without forcing anything, without proving anything, without trying to be everywhere at once. You begin to feel something you have been missing for a long time. Peace. Not the kind that comes from someone finally choosing you, but the kind that comes from no longer abandoning yourself. And from that place, everything changes. You no longer need to be constantly available to feel important. You no longer need to hold everything together to feel secure. You no longer need to be everywhere to feel seen, because now you are with yourself, fully, quietly, honestly, and that is where your real strength has always been. So if your heart feels a little heavy right now, don't rush to fix it. Just sit with this truth for a moment. You were never meant to lose yourself, just to keep someone. And you don't need to be everywhere to be deeply valued. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is gently come back to yourself and stay there. If this message quietly reached something inside you, stay close to this space. Subscribe to Golden Lotus Wisdom for more reflections on peace, self-respect, and inner freedom, the kind that brings you back to yourself slowly and honestly. And take a moment to reflect. Have you been giving too much of yourself without even noticing it? If you have, you're not alone. Write it in the comments, in your own words.